There is a moment you know well. You have prayed, you have waited, and nothing comes back. No answer, no sign, no sense that anyone is listening at all. Just silence on the other end of something you were sure was real. You start to wonder if you imagined the whole thing. And that wondering is the loneliest feeling a person can have. What you are feeling right now has a name. Researchers call it spiritual desolation. Psychologist William James, writing in 1902 in The Varieties of Religious Experience, described it as the soul's dark night, a state so distinct from ordinary sadness that it registers in the body differently than any other form of suffering. It is not depression, it is not doubt, it is something older and stranger. It is the specific ache of reaching toward God and finding the space between you wider than it was yesterday. And 3,000 years ago, a man named David felt exactly what you are feeling. He wrote it down. He did not clean it up. He did not wait until the feeling passed to record it. He wrote from inside it. And what he wrote tells you something about your own mind, your own nervous system, and the nature of God that most people never hear in church. Because what David actually felt when God went silent was not simple sadness. It was a compound experience, a layered psychological event. And the science of what happens to a human brain when its deepest source of attachment goes quiet explains exactly why David's words still feel like yours. Here is where it starts. Your brain is a prediction machine. Neuroscientist Carl Friston at University College London has spent decades mapping how the brain constantly generates predictions about the world and updates them based on incoming signals. Your brain does not passively receive reality. It is always anticipating, always modeling, always expecting. And when you have built a relationship with God, when you have prayed and felt answered, when you have read scripture and felt spoken to, when you have walked through something terrible and felt carried, your brain encodes that. It builds a model. It begins to expect that signal. It begins to predict that the channel is open.
So when the silence comes, your brain does not just feel nothing. It feels the absence of something it was certain would be there. And that absence triggers the same neural alarm system as losing a person you love. David knew this. He had no word for neural prediction models, but he had Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish? I cry out by day, but you do not answer, by night, but I find no rest. Read that slowly. He is not asking an abstract theological question. He is describing a physical state. The inability to find rest, the repetition of unanswered cries, the specific word forsaken, which in Hebrew is azab, meaning to leave behind, to abandon, to let go of something you were holding. David is describing what psychologist John Bowlby would later call attachment disruption. Bowlby's landmark research in the 1960s and 70s established that human beings form deep attachment bonds that function as emotional and neurological anchors. When those bonds are threatened, even briefly, even by silence alone, the attached person enters what Bowlby called protest behavior, crying out, searching, repeated attempts to re-establish contact. That is exactly what David was doing in Psalm 22. That is not weak faith. That is the human attachment system responding exactly as it was designed to respond when the primary anchor goes quiet. But here is what no one tells you. Bowlby also found something counterintuitive. The intensity of the protest is proportional to the strength of the bond. The more real the attachment, the more devastating the silence. Which means that what David was feeling in that psalm was not evidence that God was gone. It was evidence of how close David had actually been. You do not ache for a stranger. You do not cry out into silence for someone you never really knew. The silence itself was testimony. Now, go deeper into the biology. When the brain loses a primary attachment signal, the anterior cingulate cortex, the region that processes social pain, activates in exactly the same pattern as it does for physical pain. Researcher Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran a landmark study in 2003 using fMRI imaging to show that social exclusion and physical injury light up the same neural regions. What does this mean for David? It means that when he wrote, "I am scorned by everyone, despised by the people," when he described being mocked, surrounded, isolated, his body was experiencing that rejection as something close to physical torment. He was not being dramatic. He was not exaggerating his emotions to fill a psalm. His nervous system was in genuine distress, the kind of distress that makes a person's hands shake, that makes sleep impossible, that makes ordinary food taste like nothing. And yet, he kept writing. That is the part that matters most.
Because here is the counterintuitive twist inside Psalm 22 that most people miss completely. David does not resolve the silence by receiving an answer. He resolves it by moving his attention deliberately, effortfully, from the silence in the present to the record of the past. He writes, "In you our ancestors put their trust. They cried to you and were saved. They trusted and were not put to shame." He is doing something that modern cognitive behavioral therapy calls behavioral activation, combined with historical anchoring. He is refusing to allow his current emotional state to become the only data point. He is pulling in evidence from outside his immediate experience. He is saying, "I cannot feel you right now, but I have a record, and the record does not change just because my feelings do." Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University has shown that emotions are not things that simply happen to us. They are constructions. The brain takes incoming signals and interprets them through the lens of past experience, learned concepts, and current physical state. What this means is that the same signal, silence, can be interpreted as abandonment or as preparation, depending on what framework the brain is using to process it. David was not waiting for his feelings to change. He was changing the framework. And then comes the most stunning moment in the entire psalm. After all the anguish, after the cry of desolation, after the biological protest and the historical anchoring, David writes, "For he has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help." He does not say God spoke to him. He does not describe a vision or a sign or a burning sensation in his chest. He says God listened.
The silence was not absence. The silence was attention. This is the reframe that changes everything. Psychologist Eckhart Hess at the University of Chicago spent years studying the difference between presence and performance. He found that the most powerful form of attention is often the kind that does not interrupt, that stays with you, that holds space without filling it. What you experience as silence in those moments is not the absence of the listener, it is the quality of their attention. David discovered something in his suffering that modern psychology has spent decades trying to describe. The most intimate form of divine attention may be the one that does not rescue you immediately, the one that stays in the room with you while the pain runs its full course, the one that does not give you the answer before you have fully asked the question. Because when God seems silent, something is still happening. Your prayer is not bouncing off the ceiling. Your cry is not disappearing into nothing. There is, according to the testimony of the man who wrote more about his inner life than almost anyone in Scripture, a face turned toward you, not away from you, a listener in the silence. And here is where this comes back to you. Right now, if you are in that silent season, your brain is doing exactly what David's brain did. It is sounding the alarm. It is cycling through the same thoughts.
It is searching for the signal it was built to need. That is not spiritual failure. That is not weak faith. That is the image of God in you, the relational creature, the attached soul, doing exactly what it was designed to do when the connection feels broken. But David's testimony is this: the silence is not the end of the story. It is usually the middle. It is the part where the attachment gets tested and comes out proven. It is the part where you find out that your faith was not a feeling. It was something older and deeper than feelings, something that can survive the feeling going quiet. The psalm that opens with, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Those words that David wrote that Jesus would later cry from the cross, ends like this: "They will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to a people yet unborn, he has done it." Not he answered, not the silence broke, but he has done it. Past tense, complete, finished before it was visible. Tonight, when you sit in your silence, remember this: the attachment is still there. The face is still turned toward you, and the record outside your feelings has not changed just because your feelings have gone quiet. What David actually felt when God went silent was the same thing that you are feeling right now. And what David found inside that silence was the same thing that is waiting inside yours.